Kirk Cousins has to set the tone.
This is Locked On Sports Atlanta, and it's time for the Atlanta Football Party, only on Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Atlanta Football Party, your home for the best Atlanta Falcons football talk. It's local insight you can't get anywhere but right here at Locked On. I'm your host, Tenitra Batiste. Alongside me are Jarvis Davis, Aaron Freeman, and Maria Martin. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code all lowercase Locked On NFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. And the Atlanta Football Party is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So what can the defense do to get started a little bit faster? We'll talk about that, and we'll talk about whether or not there are some holes on D that might have us concerned. But first, let's talk about what the Falcons need to do Sunday against the Denver Broncos to avoid doing something they haven't done all season. So Jarvis, after a shocking loss to the Saints last Sunday, what do you feel will be the key for the Falcons to beat the Broncos and avoid losing back-to-back games for the first time this season?
I think the offense has to set the tone, because when you think about what Kirk Cousins brings to the table, we understand when he has time and when this offense is clicking, he's getting the ball in the hands of the playmakers, i.e. Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson, whether they be throwing it to him or a pass, or turn around and hand it off to him. And I think that, Zach Robinson should understand that, because, Vance Joseph is one of the better defensive coordinators in the league. You may question what he is as a head coach, but the man can coach some doggone defense. And I think that they got some guys that can rush the passer too. So I think this is one of those games where they can't play around. We can't have 3 and outs in the first couple of series. I think they have to be able to get on the field, sustain drives, set the tone. And they've been generally they've been good on the road. They've averaged about 27 points. I know last week was an outlier, right? The offense has been generally been able to perform pretty well on the road. So I think that setting the tone on the offense, and I think all starts with Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. You hope that it's an outlier at least. But yeah, last week was kind of a tough one to watch. I know, just being in New Orleans and kind of seeing that up front and personal, I thought to myself, that looks like the offense, to be honest with you, that we saw in how do we say, because we say Kirktober, so I'll just say non-Kirk September or something like that. Aaron, I know you probably have a better term for it than I do. But yeah, I kind of felt like that was more of the offense that we saw maybe in September when this offense was first starting to click. And I feel like, yeah, we kind of want to go back to seeing what we saw in the whole of October, where the Falcons were able to score 36 points, 38 points, and 31 points in the game where this Kirk Cousins-led offense was clicking. But what for you, Free, is that key for the Falcons to beat the Broncos so that we're not having a discussion next week or even Sunday evening about back-to-back losses for the Falcons this season?
Well, I think the Falcons are going to have to score some points, just because we know that this team so far, like their magic number this year, I think has been like 24 points, and like they're undefeated when they get to at least 24 points. And so I think the way that you get that going up against one of the better defenses in the NFL, which the Broncos have been this year, you got to start fast. I looked up the stat. I think the Falcons are 5-1 when they score at least a touchdown in the first quarter this year. So, if they can get off to a better start than they did last week against New Orleans, which they really didn't get their offense going until like midway through the second quarter against the Saints. If they can get their offense going earlier than that, I think that's going to be the thing that will allow them to kind of set the tone, as Jarvis is saying, with this offensive performance, and be able to say, okay, we know what we're doing. This is one of the better defenses in the NFL, but we can move the ball down the field and get points and score touchdowns, hopefully, more so than settling for field goals and whatnot. So I think really getting off to that fast start, and whether that's on the opening drive or the second series of the game, being able to go down the field and get 7 points, I think will be huge for this team against this Broncos team.
Yeah, Maria, when you look at that Broncos offense, you do want to put them in a situation where they're trying to play the game of catch up, because it's not exactly what we would call a high scoring offense of Denver Broncos, because you're looking at their last 4 games and really the entirety of the season. But looking at their last 4 games, like 14 points, 10 points. And yeah, they scored 33 and 28, but then you jump back to the rest of their games. And yeah, they're really kind of middling maybe getting into the mid to high teens for the most part. So if this Falcons offense can find itself getting ahead early in offense, then that puts this defense at an advantage. But what for you is the key for the Falcons to beat the Broncos this weekend?
Well, one thing that I want people to keep in mind is that we're going to talk about the Broncos defense a lot today because really that is the story. And they are the better side of the ball on any team that is playing on Sunday in this matchup. However, the Broncos offense, give them a little bit of credit. Bo Nix is one of the best rookies in the NFL right now. He's playing the best behind Jaden Daniels. He's the only one that has more total yards than him. So he can put up some things on offense, though I do think this is a really good opportunity for this Falcons defense to kind of right the ship and do things that they didn't do against the Saints last Sunday. Now, the key for me, I agree with both Jarvis and Aaron, would be Kirk Cousins. He has to have a better game. And really the only 2 games of the year where he failed to score a touchdown was against the Saints. So that's good. That means that there's just one common opponent in that. He's going to get to the end zone. He's going to be able to find his playmakers to some degree. We'll get into the nuances of just how he can do that. But I think he sets the tone in this game. Raheem Morris was talking on Wednesday and he said he was talking about starting fast. He doesn't necessarily want to say that as a message because what if you don't? However, they pretty much started on the opening drive and showed some life. And then after that, there really wasn't much life the whole rest of the ball game. They looked like they were forcing things. Kirk Cousins even said he was very aggressive on the interception, which he normally isn't. He's a pretty patient quarterback. So I think just playing to what they know and being able to do that really well, put some points on the board. The fact that they have not been able to win a game if they don't reach the 20-point mark, that's rough. So they're going to have to put some points on the board, especially at Mile High Stadium. It's an atmosphere that's unbelievable. Grady Jarrett said he's so excited to go back and play in that atmosphere. So I'm excited to see what they can do, but they definitely have to do a lot of things differently than they did Sunday in New Orleans.
Yeah, and one of those things that we need to see is Kirk Cousins getting a little bit better protection because we don't want to see Kirk Cousins on the ground 3 times. And we definitely, from a sack perspective, but also you look at it from the perspective of the QB hits. He got knocked on the ground. He got knocked down rather, and almost to the ground 9 times. That's something that we've not seen a lot of this season, and we certainly don't want to see Kirk get knocked to the ground for 3 sacks and 9 QB hits come Sunday. But knowing, as Jarvis had mentioned, the Broncos defense coordinator, Vance Joseph, and how he likes to dial things up, and what the O-line didn't quite give Kirk Cousins with the time that he needed to push that ball down the field, what can Zach Robinson do to keep Kirk out of trouble?
Yeah, I think the offensive line has to step up. It's not as just simple as, normally I would just say like, hey, just get the ball to Bijan and let him work his magic. If we just need to just dial up 28 screens or something like that as a way, and he'll probably get like 200 yards off of those 28 screens. So no, I think it's going to be a challenge for this offensive line because I think back to that Seattle game where Seattle's pass rush was able to get after Kirk Cousins a little bit, and Denver is probably maybe potentially the best pass rush that the Falcons will face this upcoming season. So you really need that offensive line to really sort of step up. You're really going to need, and maybe they get Drew Dalman back this week, and so maybe that's a variable that helps with that unit, especially on some of the interior pressure that can, I think, really make Kirk struggle a little bit more just because he doesn't have that mobility. But yeah, I think it's going to be a challenge for this offense, whether we're talking about the quarterback, whether we're talking about the offensive line, the running game, the receivers, all that and more. Like this Denver Broncos defense really matches up well against this Falcons offense. And I think it'll be really important to sort of see what Zach Robinson can sort of throw at one of the better defenses in the NFL to really find whatever weaknesses they have. And I think one of the few that I've noticed is maybe their linebacker core is not as great. And so I think that is probably lends credence to Bijan Robinson or Kyle Pitts, one of those 2 guys or both of those guys preferably sort of stepping up and having a big game and taking advantage of those mismatches.
Yeah, I mean, everything that Aaron is talking about, I wish it was that simple and we could just wave a magic wand and say that this is going to be easy for the Falcons offensive line. I think this is going to be their biggest challenge of the entire year. I think getting Drew Dalman back will be key. I don't think it's going to win you the football game, but I do think that it is going to be a significant step up from Ryan Newsel. Even though he has done a serviceable job, you just realize that there is a little bit more time with a more veteran seasoned center there playing on the Falcons offensive line. And look, Kirk Cousins, when he has time, he's fantastic. And we know that. But however, when he is pressured, and Denver's defense does that very well, 209 pressures this year, 35 sacks on the year. Those are buku numbers, especially as a Falcons fan. You hear those and you think, well, dang, I wish that was me, or I wish even half of that was me. So this the Broncos defensive line is outstanding. And I think Kirk's really going to have his hands full. The key is going to be to get the ball out pretty quickly. He's a guy that likes to be pretty patient. And in those games where he's had a ton of time, which there's been plenty of them so far this year for the Falcons, he's looked really great. But when he's pressured, it causes him to do some funny things, as in turn the ball over, as in create some really terrible mismatches on offense. So yeah, I wish it was that simple. I just do think this is probably the best defensive line that they'll face the rest of the year. And this is a defense who has held opponents to under 17 points in 3 of their last 4 games. We're talking about that 20-point margin, and where the Falcons, when they don't reach it, they're 0-4. Look at what this Broncos defense has been able to do. And even when you dip into the secondary, you're talking about Pat Surtain, he can take away your key playmakers. That is going to be an unbelievable matchup for either Drake London or Darnell Mooney. This guy keys in on your best player and takes them out of the game. So I think the Falcons really have their hands full. This is a really good opportunity for Zach Robinson to, as we talked to him on Wednesday, flex his creativity muscle. This is the time where he's going to have to be creative, because I think this is a really tough matchup offensively for the Falcons.
And to add to what Maria said, when you look at what Jonathan Cooper and Nick Pitino bring to the table, those guys are 1 and 2 as far as sacks on the team, and then both outside linebackers. So when you think about what Kalen McGarry has to go up against and what Jake Matthews have to go up against, Jake Matthews has been one of the most solid left tackles we've seen for this organization, but he had a kind of a stinker last week, and most inopportune time when you think about it, right? So I feel like the two bookends at tackles, whatever type game they have as far as pass protection goes, I feel like that's how the offense is going to go. And it is up to them, like Maria mentioned, it's definitely up to Kirk to not hold on to the football, because they will get there. They put Patrick Mahomes on the ground a couple times last week against the Kansas City Chiefs. So if they can get Superman on the ground, they can get Kirk on the ground.
Indeed, indeed. So what do the Falcons need to do in the Mile High City to get off to a fast start defensively? We'll discuss when we take it under further review. This episode of our Atlanta Football Party is brought to you by Hillsdale College. So time is our most precious commodity, right? Don't waste it scrolling through the same mind-numbing content for hours and hours. How can you spend it wisely to improve yourself? Well, history, econ, the great works of literature. If you studied that in school, or even if you didn't, maybe it's time for a refresher. So Hillsdale College is offering more than 40 free, that's right, free online courses, including Introduction to Free Market Economics, The Great American Story, The Rise and Fall of the Roman Republic, and so much more. And all of Hillsdale's courses are self-paced, so you can start whenever and tune in wherever. Plus, you can go deeper with readings, quizzes, discussions, or just enjoy the lecture. So go right now to hillsdale.edu/locked-on to enroll. There's no cost, and it's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/locked-on to register. hillsdale.edu/locked-on. This episode of our Atlanta Football Party is also brought to you by FanDuel. If you're ready to take the NFL action this week with FanDuel, do it, because FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. FanDuel's sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. So check out FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports book partner of the NFL and America's #1 sportsbook. So guys, we talked a little bit earlier about how the Falcons offense looks to make a quick start. It needs to make a fast start this week, but also the Falcons defense didn't exactly get off to a good start last week. They gave up several explosive plays in the passing game, and it helped the Saints to really jump out to that early lead that they never relinquished. So for you, Free, what do you need to see from this offense, and what can this defense rather do to avoid another slow start on the road?
Well, they got to eliminate the explosive plays because that was another key element in the previous loss against the Seahawks. But I think, to me, the thing that I think I'm most concerned with giving this Falcons defense problems is the mobility of Bo Nix. I think his ability to be able to create with his legs, whether that's, scrambling, whether that's, using his legs in the red zone, that has been a very effective weapon for this Broncos. I think he leads the team in rushing touchdowns this season. And so that has been something that the Falcons have not done a particularly great job against. So you've seen Baker Mayfield and Derek Carr busting off like 13 and 20-yard scrambles and whatnot. And Bo Nix is definitely a better athlete than either one of those two guys, not to take shots at them. But it's one of those things where if you can't contain those guys, and we saw Jalen Hurts have a lot of success in that Eagles game with his scrambles. Dak Prescott had basically the biggest scramble, the biggest run of the Cowboys season, I think, against the Falcons. I think Mahomes probably had a big scramble that I'm blanking on as well. So it does feel like every single week opposing quarterbacks are able to use their legs to basically break what we call, I don't know, T, are we still calling the Oreo defense, the bend but don't break defense? But the whole point of that style of defense is you get off the field on third downs, you get stops in the red zone. And when you have a mobile quarterback that can, on a 3rd and 5, just kind of tuck it and run, that to me is going to be a challenge for the team to get off the field in third downs. And then when you get into the red zone and you're so worried about, they're going to run Javonte Williams or Audric Estime up the middle, and then, Bo Nix keeps it on a rollout and then dives into the end zone like we've seen him do a couple of times this year. So I think that's going to be the real challenge for the Falcons. But yeah, I think, you got to slow down the explosive plays and you got to slow down Bo Nix's mobility.
And Jarvis, I think one of the things you said as well is you're looking for this defense to get after it with turnovers. That's important because then you have the opportunity to flip the field and then put your offense in a position where they're able to score and score quickly.
Yeah, and that's the thing about getting to that magic number, right? 28 to 30 points,
Yes.
and that's something that they've been able to do on the road. So I think that, forcing turnovers is the key because here's the thing, man. Anytime you ask about what's a quarterback greatest asset is, and you start talking about legs, how he can run, he's not a good quarterback. I don't care what nobody say about Bo Nix. Like, you can't convince me that this dude is going to be a viable above average starter in the NFL. Like, come on, that's what we're talking about. He literally leads the team in explosive runs. Like, that's his one crime mark, right? Like, so when you think about, and I'm with Aaron, I feel like that's the thing I'm most afraid of because I know what he's capable of. I know the issues that the Falcons have had containing quarterbacks and being disciplined and not letting them get outside of the pocket. They've let non-mobile quarterbacks do that. So when you got a guy that's looking to run, because he's a one read and go guy. He's not going through his progressions and all that stuff. So if you're trying to figure out ways to sack him in that manner, you're probably going to continue looking, and you're going to be looking at an L at the end of the game because the guy's going to, if his first read's not there, he's out. He's going to go. So I think, being disciplined on defense and also making sure that they figure out a way to turn him over and get that offensive extra possession, I feel like the Falcons will be in good shape.
Yeah, and I think that's a critical point that you made, Jarvis, the fact that you know who he is. He's shown you, and I hear what you're saying, Maria, in terms of like how he's performed relative to maybe what his numbers are behind Jaden Daniels, but let's not get it twisted, not even close to what Jaden Daniels is as a quarterback. Now, the numbers do lie in that regard, but ultimately speaking, I think Jarvis probably put the nail on the head, which is he makes himself one-dimensional once he gets past that first read, and he's like, oh, that first read's gone, I'm going. And so maybe if that's something that the Falcons defense can pick up on early and make sure that they hone in on it and take advantage of it, then yeah, advantage to the Falcons offense. But for you, Maria, what do you want to see or what do you need to see from this Falcons defense so it's not another slow start on the road and then the offense finds themselves kind of swimming upstream?
Yeah, first of all, Jaden Daniels is by far and out the best rookie quarterback in the league. Second of all, I still think overlooking Bo Nix is a massive mistake, and I stand by that for sure. I am someone who has watched
You're
him
not overlooking him.
since
We're
he
just
was in
saying what
high
he does
school.
well.
Hold on.
And not be a throwing quarterback.
I have watched him since he was in high school. I covered him when he was in high school. And then when he was at Auburn, which that was a disaster, and that had nothing to do with Bo Nix. And then he went to Oregon, and they played to his strengths really well. That's what the Broncos do. They play to his strengths really well. He's the guy that you do
That's a
have
nice
to
way
get
to say
him.
it.
But it's true. And no, I don't think that he's as bad of a quarterback as you do. And I'll stand on that. And I also think that he's someone that Sean Payton has started to figure out how to get him a little bit more comfortable in the NFL. What Jaden Daniels is doing is not fair to compare to the other rookie quarterbacks, but what Bo Nix is doing is good for a rookie quarterback. I just think that that's true. So again, overlooking him, not exactly what you should be doing. However, what I do think is good about Bo Nix for the Falcons defense, he is not going to make a lot of throws over 15 yards. In the last two out of the last 4 games, he has started to push the ball a little bit more downfield, which means he's getting a little bit more comfortable in those long distance throws. However, make him uncomfortable. Try to force him into that situation, because when you do force him to throw those, guess who's parked back there ready to pick him off? Turnovers is going to be a big key for the Falcons defense in this one. And even if you make Bo uncomfortable, he's very tough to take down, as you guys were talking about. Even when he does scramble outside the pocket, he's just hard to get on the ground. So I think that it is going to be very important for this Falcons defense to make him uncomfortable. He is a quarterback that I do think that you can take advantage of in certain scenarios, i.e. force him to throw down the field a little bit more.
Yeah, I think I'll take the middle ground between Maria and Jarvis when it comes to Bo Nix. I think he is a competent quarterback. I don't know if he's the guy that you
I didn't say the man was a bum.
And I didn't say he was the best quarterback ever. Wait, maybe no one's listening to us. Maybe no one's listening to us.
I'll just take the middle ground and say you both guys are right. You know, Bo Nix has his flaws, and
that's an assumption that I was.
Wait, that's literally what we both just said. That's literally what we both just said. We both said he has flaws and he does good things.
I'm just trying to be peacemaker, Maria. That's all it is. I'm just trying to bring people together on Bo Nix. That's all it is.
Listen,
Aaron was just trying to bring us back to a happy place. He's a happy place on defense. That's really all he was trying to do. And hopefully we'll be in a happy place with the fact that, yes, there may be some defensive players down for this Falcons D next week, but maybe they're too deep is still enough to get it done in Denver. We'll get into that in what's next. This episode of our Atlanta Football Party is brought to you by Prize Picks. So think about this, guys. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. And with over 10 million members and award-winning prizes, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. So here's the key. You just pick more or less on 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. 100 times your cash? I think I'll take that all day, every day. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. So, as I mentioned, you can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. And hey, here in Georgia, along with California, Florida, and Texas, it's the best way to get action on sports in those states and over 30 states overall. And if you sign up today, you can get $50 instantly when you play $5. You didn't even need to win to receive that $50 bonus because it's guaranteed. And Prize Picks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday, where each Tuesday Prize Picks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineup. So download that Prize Picks app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today for Prize Picks right after you finish watching or listening to the Atlanta Football Party. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup, because Prize Picks helps you to run your game. Locked On Sports Today is a free 24/7 sports streaming channel and is programmed to bring you the biggest stories daily without all the noise. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So Maria, the Falcons' depth will be tested somewhat this week as Taquan Graham and James Smith-Williams look like they'll miss some time. But even in the potential absence of TQ, JSW, yes, I just gave him a nickname. Are you confident the Falcons have enough depth to be effective against the Broncos this week?
I think if we coin somebody with a nickname, it means they're playing pretty well, right? Like they're deserving of a nickname.
Jarvis says Maria. So yeah, you're right. Jarvis, do I get to give him a nickname?
Yes, you did. The JSW
Okay,
is. There we go.
Yeah, you get the stamp of approval from Jarvis. That means it's a good thing.
yes.
For me, I think the Falcons obviously have depth, but it's just how good is it going to be? TQ, him being absent, I don't think that you can't feel some type of loss from that. He's been so productive on defense for the Falcons, and JSW as well. When you talk about there's not many sacks for this Falcons defense, he's one of the guys that's had one. And I think that he was maybe a bright spot that we weren't really expecting on defense so far this year. It's going to cause Arnold Ebiketie to step up a lot. And look, the last couple of games, I've been really impressed with what AK's been doing. We needed to see more from him, and that's what we're getting. Matt Judon had an interesting conversation with reporters on Wednesday and saying that he's playing to what's being asked of him within the defense. I don't know if that was a shot at somebody else. I don't know if he's trying to say that he's not giving as much production because of the defensive play calling. So I thought that was really interesting. He even said, if I try to go out there and do what I did in New England and of course in Baltimore, then I can't. So I think that's very interesting. But we're still talking about this. And I think we say it every single week on this podcast, need to see more from the Red Sleeves. I do, whether it's defensive play calling or whatever you want to call it. He's not doing what you brought him here to do. So, hey, this is another opportunity for him to show that he can create some more pressure. We know it's there somewhere. I don't know if it was left in another state, but it's in his body to some degree, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, I'm pretty concerned about losing those two guys, to be totally honest with you. I think their productivity has been far and away way better than any of us expected.
Yeah, and JD, I got to go back to something that Maria said. I'm going to go with JS Dub because it just sounds a little funkier. So with JS Dub, I feel like he is the bright spot that we didn't know we needed on defense, but we got it. TQ is someone we got back after injury, and he's looked pretty solid. But I got to stop where Maria said something that we've been talking about. And JD, I thought about you specifically while I was watching the game because I saw Matthew Judon's jersey flash across the screen. And I was like, oh my God, there's a Matthew Judon sighting last week. And I'm not trying to be funny, but that's actually where my mind went when I saw the camera pan to him. So I want to stop there, Jarvis, and give you an opportunity to kind of talk about that because you had a little look on your face. And I think that it's right for us, as it relates to depth and as it relates to usage on how we feel about Matthew Judon and his opportunity this week, or for that matter any other week, to show what it is that was the reason Terry Fontenot brought him in.
Yeah, I'm perplexed.
Can I read you the exact quote? Are you ready?
Yeah.
Yes, please. I would love to because I hope what you said was verbatim. But go ahead.
Here we go. I'm trying to do what I do within the defense, Judon said. You play the call that has been played. They brought me here to do a job, and I have tried to be within the defense. If I come here and try to do what I did with the Ravens and the Patriots and not play within the scheme of the defense, that's not being one of 11. End quote.
I'm sorry.
Still confused, right?
Yeah. If it's third and long and you're lined up over the tackle and they're not double teaming you, like how's that any different from any defense on 31 other teams?
He did have a comment on third and long. Would you like for me to read it?
Sure. Let's go. Let's dive in this thing.
I know, right? Maria's bringing all the juice. Come on with the tea.
Does he have opinions on other things? Like,
I'm
what's
just being a good reporter. I'm just regurgitating what's been said. Okay. Start quote. Quote, on third and long, when you're trying to close out games, it's just go get the quarterback, he said. I just have to do that at a better clip. End quote. That's fair.
Yeah, he should have just said that because that whole doing within the scheme of the defense, that's bullcrap. I'm sorry. Like there's no one double teaming you.
Can I just say this, Travis?
Yeah.
Starting a riot.
I don't usually interrupt you guys at all, but which is it? Is it the first quote or is it the second quote? Because to me, it sounds like some hypocrisy going on as far as which one is it going to be? Are you going to take the blame and the responsibility for what you're not doing on critical downs? Or are you going to try to defer that to the coaches? Like, which is it going to be here? That to me is the frustrating part. Just take the L, take the responsibility, and just do your damn job when you get to Denver. Okay, Jarvis, back to you.
Yes, like you gave up a 3rd-round pick for this cat. And and I've seen on film, and I'm not guessing, I'm not speculating. I've seen on film where this dude had his hands on his knees like he was tired in the first freaking quarter of the game. And you know why I know he was tired? Because guess what? The next play, he had Damone Harris coming in for him. Like, so those are the type of things that should not happen. And and if you're saying that the scheme is the issue, like, so you're not supposed to be in shape for this scheme? Like, you're not supposed to be one blocking for this scheme? Like, dude, I've never heard of those type of football analogies or football, way of doing things. I've never heard of that. Maybe that's above my level, right? I got a bachelor's degree in football. Maybe that's PhD level type stuff. And I've never heard anything like that. Aaron may know, you know what I'm saying? Like, Aaron has a good knowledge of. Maria may know. T, you may even know. But I have never heard anyone sit up here and say, because I can't beat one-on-one blocking, it's because of the scheme. That makes absolutely no sense to me. And Judon, bro, man, bro, it's a reason why they went to a rotation, bro. Like,
Yeah.
There's been times where also he's dropped in coverage on 3rd and long, by the way. That's not what he's saying. I mean, he's not wrong. Like, on 3rd and long, it is go get after the quarterback, and he hasn't been able to do that. But I've seen him backpedaling in 3rd and long on multiple occasions.
Because he can't rush the quarterback, that's why.
But even if you don't agree with this game, and clearly, according to The Athletic in this quote, he doesn't.
Sure.
Just keep those comments to yourself when the production isn't there. Yeah. I don't know that that's really an excuse for what we've seen.
Yeah.
Aaron, you were making some faces. Tell us about it.
Oh no, I'm just trying to figure out where I can find the middle ground so I can bring people together. And there really is none. There is none here. There's none right here. So I got nothing.
No.
I really got nothing right here.
Yeah, no, not this time, Free. The only middle ground that there is when you're in the middle of a play and there's an opportunity, you get yourself up the middle. And of course, I am being, I'm being a little bit over the top here. But that guy, like that guy under center, just go for him. Just go right for him. Do nothing else. It's like old Monopoly. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Just get to the quarterback, however you need to do it. And I think my thing here as well, and this is not so much schematically, but this is just kind of like IQ, EQ. That's a conversation, to Maria's point, that you have offline with Jimmy Lake. And you work with Jimmy Lake to figure out how you can be your most effective self. That's where we need to be, because you're talking about a team that is in the thick of the playoff contention. I still think it's going to win the NFC South, if you will, but then you get to a situation where, how many games would you be able to host, if you will? How much is this defense going to be the one that scares people when it takes the field as the season continues to wear on? And that's, my concern as we start to look at things, and we want to continue to think of the Seattle Seahawks game and even the New Orleans Saints game as outliers. We don't want to think of them as, oh my, those are the games that, as Jarvis said, for another team down the road that shall remain nameless, did they really show themselves and who they really are? Which one of these defenses is it, and which Matthew Judon is the real Matthew Judon? Because that guy needs to stand up when they get there. And listen, we don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to ask you guys to do this rapid fire style, but another guy, Jarvis, that we know has to stand up is Younghoe Koo. We cannot see what we've seen out of him so far. 40th in the league in field goal percentage, kicking under 71% so far this season.
Yeah, I think Raheem. I don't want to see Raheem Morris lose his innate ability to be able to know when to go for it on 4th down, because of he don't know whether or not his doggone kicker is going to make a field goal. I don't want to be in a position where he feels like he has to go for it on 4th down if in a particular situation he doesn't know if his kicker is going to be able to make a field goal. So I want him to be able to go back to that early on, like, hey, I know my kicker going to be there, but I feel like this is the time to go for it. Or, hey, I know my kicker can make this, and this is going to be best for the team going forward. And I'm going to send him out there knowing that he's going to be able to make the kick.
Indeed, because that has been one of the signature bright spots and success stories for this team this season, their ability to be aggressive on fourth down to make things happen. Thanks to our everydayers for making the Atlanta Football Party your first listen of the day. Be sure to stop by the Atlanta Football Parties Mondays and Thursdays for a double dose of all things Falcons, where we make things happen. Be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're also free and available wherever you download your podcasts. We'll see you Monday.